did have some difficulties tonight. They weren't as bad as Kansas City, but they were bad enough. So apologies to all your Kansas City fans out there, and congratulations to the Eagles fans. If you would, join with me for the Pledge of Allegiance and our invocation by Councilmember Gulick. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen.
Oh, I didn't turn it on.
Denise, if you would call the roll, please.
Councilmember Shaw. Gulick. Here. Neese.
Here.
Owen.
Here.
Rogers.
Here.
Kennedy.
Councilmember
Councilmember Kennedy. Aspenleiter.
Here.
Tidswell.
Here.
Boyette.
Excused, but is with us online, or he was going to be. Does he appear?
He is.
Can't hear us, so.
Okay, very
He's
good.
present.
He's having trouble hearing us, but he is there, and so we'll see if we can't patch that piece together.
Councilmember Rapsis.
Here.
Mayor Cole.
Here. First item is our minutes of January 27, 2025. Are there any changes, or is there a motion pertaining to those minutes? Councilmember Neese?
Yes, Mayor, I think you saw the email from, I'm sorry, I don't have it up here in front of me. There's email from, was it Denise, Tony, or Tony?
It was Tony.
Tony, about the changes to the minutes.
I didn't. So if you can read those into the record, Denise, I guess would be appropriate.
Okay.
Or make it clear what those were.
Okay, I might have to go back to that to find it. It was this morning. And she made them, so hold on. Boy.
Okay, I found them.
Did you find them?
I did. Okay, so there's a change to when, where it said that Councilmember Boyette left or came back as actually Councilmember Aspenleiter. So that made a change on that when you left, but she notated that, but then when she came back, she said Boyette returned. So she corrected that. And the other one that she added after, just before the vote, Councilmember Shaw asked a procedural question so as to so she added this sentence that Councilmember Shaw asked a clarification on Councilmember Kennedy and Aspenleiter voting since they had not been present. Councilmember Owen and Boyette indicated they could not vote. That's the revisions that she made.
Okay, so if any motion, if you agree with those changes, if that could be incorporated in the motion. Is there a motion or other changes or questions about those changes?
I'll make a motion to adopt the minutes of January 27th with the changes done by Tony.
Very good, thank you. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Rogers. Any discussion? Okay, motion is for approval with those changes. If in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes with Councilmember Boyette voting online. Any council courtesies this evening? Councilmember Owen and Councilmember Gulick?
Mayor, I have.
Councilmember Gowan, go ahead.
Mayor, I have two, if that's all right.
Sure.
The first is just a reminder. I assume folks have seen this online, but if not, the Northern Lights Family Justice Center is having a public open house tomorrow at 3 p.m. The address is 909 Wyoming Avenue. This has been a council priority, certainly something Councilmember Aspenleiter has devoted a tremendous amount of time to. And it's a great opportunity for the public to see this facility in operation. And the next, Mayor, just wanted to give a little shout out. I've talked about this a few times here. Billings is home to one of 4 regional qualifiers for the Montana Lego League, first Lego League robotics programming competition. A few weeks ago, they had their yearly semifinals at Ben Steele. A number of local teams advanced. They should have advanced to state in Bozeman this weekend, but the roads were closed, so they had to cancel the state competition. So I just wanted to give a shout out to our local teams who did advance, and unfortunately didn't get a chance to compete much at state. So big congratulations to Billings Central, teams 1 and 2, the Ben Steele Knights, Ben Steele Sharks, and the Wise Wonder Know-It-Alls for sending teams onto what should have been a great state competition in Lego robotics over the weekend. Thank you.
We know that if there had been the state competition, they would have all won, right? You said 2? That was those 2. Okay. Councilmember Aspenleiter? Or I'm sorry, Councilmember Gulick, and then Councilmember Aspenleiter?
Yeah, I just wanted to commend our code enforcement. We saw in the weekly, the report on the anti-graffiti pilot project. I think was particularly impressive. I urge all those in the public to check out last Friday's weekly report from the city administrator. Really good work they've been doing.
Good, thank you. Councilmember Aspenleiter?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to thank Debbie and Derek's team with Streets on the efforts that they've been putting forward the last couple of weeks. As the son of a snowplow driver, like I grew up knowing what this does to families and the stretch that it puts on those that are working hours and hours and hours and hours to service the public. So not just thanks to those guys that are out there working, but also thanks to their families for giving up their time so that those guys can serve our city, and sacrificing along with those guys to put the hours in to do the work that they do for our city. So I just wanted to mention that and thank those folks.
Very good, thank you. Any other council courtesies this evening? Okay, don't see any. We'll move on. We don't have any proclamations this evening. Council reports, reports from organizations or committees that we serve on behalf of the council. Any council reports? Seeing none, city administrator report. Chris, do you have anything?
Mayor and council, so just 3 brief items. A reminder to everybody that next week is President's Day on Monday, so we will be in this location, same time, but on Tuesday evening. That's Tuesday, February 18th. So an observance of President's Day. There are 3 ex parte communications that came in after 3, all dealing with consent agenda item 1E. That is the grant for the trail connection. And then last but not least, I'd like to kind of jump on Councilmember Aspenleiter's comments as well to thank our staff, contractors, and our citizens for their patience. Just a few kind of stats. So some of you may recall, and TJ, who's brand new, so we tax and collect money to do residential street plowing. That started, I think, about a decade ago. We don't tax for that every year. We keep in the fund, if you will, about $750,000, essentially counting on 3 storms a year or 3 residential plow cycles a year. And then when that fund is used up or partially used, the next budget cycle will refill that and just leave it at that. But we don't tax for it year over year. So as an example, the last 2 years, there was no residential plowing. This year, though, tomorrow we will finish our 3rd cycle through. So this storm resulted in 2 full cycles of residential plowing, a prior storm 1. So that fund, good news, the funds were there, the work is there. But when we get into the budget cycle, we'll follow through on that. It's Yeah, roughly each plow cycle runs anywhere from $270 to $300,000. Just depends on how much time it takes to work through the whole system. And then last but not least, again, a big thank you to our citizens. Anytime they can move cars and things off the streets, it shortens our time frame, which saves us money and does a better job than weaving in and out of cars. And I know that's not always possible. Some of our neighborhoods don't have the luxury of driveways and garages, but those that do, when they get those cars off the street, it is a huge help to the drivers who are out there. So just some stats for you to keep in mind for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Okay, then we'll move on to public comment on non-public hearing items. So tonight, everything on our agenda is a non-public hearing item, meaning that there won't be a public hearing, won't be another opportunity for public hearing or for public comment on the things on our agenda, which is item 1, the consent agenda and all the subparts there. And then number 2, our budget priorities on the regular agenda. So that we'll have an opportunity for comment at the end of the meeting on things that were not on our agenda. But if you'd like to comment on something that is on our agenda, now is the time. So just come forward. We ask that you use that kind of northeast podium.
This one?
Yes, hopefully that's
Okay.
live. And if you can, just introduce yourself
Testing?
and
Yes, okay.
keep it constant for 3 minutes or so. Thank you.
I am just dollars for the big that and and Billings.
Very, very good. Chrissy, if I can make a suggestion, if you come up here, you guys stand there, and I don't want to rain on your parade because I was the one who suggested, while you're all here, we snap a picture. I'll just, for the record, kind of say that this is an item that's on our agenda, and so there's a theoretical possibility we wouldn't accept that check. And so no, let's do it, then it'll be done, but just sort of contingent. I don't want to offend the council by suggesting that the rest of the meeting doesn't matter. So, but while you're here, let's do, if that's okay, let's just come up here and if you got somebody who snap a picture and there, no, what, okay, however, wherever you want to be.
You stand here and
And you guys stand right in
We'll
front
be
of us.
there.
That'd be great. Yeah, we'll just
is
sit here.
that okay with all
Okay, and then it's contingent. We'll call it that way, but that way you've got the picture. Yeah. No, that's fine. We can stand. You guys want to stand? Yeah, that looks better, I think. We're gonna have to do a lot of these. We're gonna have to get used to how to do the new procedure.
Okay, I'm just snapping a lot, so just continue. Okay, whenever you're tired, I'm not smiling. All right, thank you.
Very good, thank you. Very good, thank you. Additional public comment on any item on our agenda tonight? Just come to the podium if you've got any comment on anything on our agenda tonight. Is there any public comment? before I close public comment? No one is coming forward, so I will close the public comment period. And council, move to you and ask if there are any separations from our consent agenda this evening. Councilman Rasmussen, you had a recusal, I believe.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I would ask to separate 1P2 for purposes of recusal.
Thank you. 1P2, Councilman Rasmussen's engineering firm is a recipient of one of those checks. Any other separations? Okay, is there a motion? This will be an opportunity for discussion. Councilmember Rasmussen, or Councilmember Gulick?
I move to approve the items on the consent agenda as submitted with the exception of item P1P2.
Very good. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Shaw. Okay, discussion. I'd like to just make an expression of thanks for donation item 1G, donation of code enforcement from Rimrock Credit Union for the Anti-Graffiti Fund. Also, item 1H, donations to the police department from Empire Roofing and an anonymous donor for Camp Blue and other departmental needs. Thank you, donors. We appreciate you thinking of the city. Other discussion? Any other discussion on the motion, which is for approval of all the items? Okay, well, if not, we'll move to a vote. The vote is for approval. Item 1, all the subparts with the exception of the one item for recusal purposes. If in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And I didn't hear Councilmember Boyette, but Councilmember Boyette, can we hear you, or can you put up your little yellow thumb?
I don't believe he can hear us tonight, so.
He cannot.
Correct.
Okay. If that changes, if you get word that something has changed, would you let us know so we can include Councilmember Boyette? Okay. Then if in favor of the motion, I guess we already did vote, and that was the only question. So motion passes unanimously with the exception of Councilmember Boyette, who did not vote, and the one recused item. Councilmember Neese.
Make a motion to approve item 1P2.
Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Gulick. Any discussion? Seeing none, if in favor of the motion approval 1P2, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. If opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously, with the exception of Councilmember Rasmussen, who did not participate. That concludes item number 1 and brings us to regular agenda, item number 2. Denise, would you read item number 2?
Yes, and Mayor, that was actually Councilmember Boyette, not Aspenleiter, that was not voting.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, you didn't, and he didn't either, right? Okay, so one's abstained and one is absent, basically. Okay, thank you. All right. Resolution approving FY 2026 City Council budget goals. Council Budget and Finance Committee recommends approval.
Very good. Thank you. Andy, our Finance Director, is going to make the presentation, so we'll turn it over to Andy.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I'm going to get this shared here. One moment, please. And that's good. Okay, I think it's sharing. So we have tonight before you guys budget goals we were hoping to have adopted. Let's see here. There we go. This was a kind of a product of the Budget and Finance Committee. The objective was to try to get some direction from the committee and ultimately the council for some goals and guidelines on direction to staff as we went and prepared the budget, so that when we bring it back in May, there's more understanding. Generally, my goal was that there'd be fewer large amendments the night of adoption, hoping that we generally brought a budget that was consistent with the flavor of council as a whole. So that was largely the objective. We have not ever adopted these in years past. but that's why we thought maybe this would be a way to kind of start the process with some direction at the beginning. So initially, in December, at the Budget and Finance Committee meeting, staff brought forward some recommendations, items for consideration, and then the Budget and Finance Committee had those for the month of December. Then in the January meeting, we met and further refined them. Obviously, they're here tonight for your consideration and adoption. I have the slides here. Obviously, you guys received all of these as part of your packet. We tried to categorize the budget goals underneath the appropriate priorities that you guys have already adopted. I'm not going to read through all of these to you tonight, but going to take notes the best I can if there's any amendments or changes and get those incorporated. There were a couple items that the committee did not have a majority vote on, and those were noted in bright yellow. There's one on this slide here for just so you guys were aware. So they kind of fall into the 5 categories: improving safety of Billings, sustaining and upgrading critical infrastructure, fostering economic vibrancy, providing exceptional recreation and cultural amenities, cultivating a high-performance organization. Sometimes this worked as the catch-all, though, so there may be a few in there that didn't fit in a council priority very well, and I'd use this as miscellaneous as well. I'm happy to go through any of these in further detail. These are a combination of staff-provided ones as well as those from Budget and Finance Committee members and the committee as a whole. Mayor, I think my thought, what would be best to go through, or the process to go through this, may be, if I would certainly turn it to Budget and Finance Committee chair and members. I think we've done that traditionally with items coming from them, and then however you guys would like to go through it. I think that's all I have for a very brief presentation, but I'm happy to answer questions on any of them individually.
Okay, thank you, Andy. In just a minute, I will turn it over to Chair of our Budget Committee to walk us through anything that he'd like to walk us through and tell us if he has any suggestion for how we go through these. Unless there's a different suggestion, I would just go section by section and try to break it up in that way. But before I hand it over, I did email some changes about 11 o'clock this morning. I think all the council members have a hard copy of that. I've got a few extra here for staff. Andy, Denise, Chris, would any of you like a hard copy? You've got that. Andy, do you have a hard copy?
I received the email. I did not obviously incorporate any of them in at this point, but I do have them.
Do you want a hard copy? Anybody
okay
want a
with
hard
that, yeah,
copy that doesn't have one? Okay, then we'll proceed. Then I'll turn it over to the Councilmember Gulick, Chair of our Budget Committee.
Thank you, Mayor. So yes, as Andy mentioned, this is a new process for City Council and the Budget and Finance Committee, but just an effort to make clearly communicate very early in the budget making process what the majority of council thoughts are in general, or just what council thoughts were. I think it makes actually the most sense, Mayor, if we actually have an underlying motion, and so that we know that we're just working with that. There's going to be potentially some amendments to be made along, but if you're okay, I go ahead and make a motion.
I am with that. Yeah, we want to have something on the table, so.
Yeah, very good. I move to approve a resolution adopting the fiscal year 2026 City Council budget goals as recommended by the Council Budget and Finance Committee.
Very good. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Ripsis. Very good. So we have a motion on the table. Councilmember Gulick, did you want to?
Yeah, and then I think
further?
Going from here, I think I'm happy to turn over to you in terms of just going through section by section. I think that makes sense. Unless are there any remarks that anyone else from the Budget Committee wants to make?
Other members of the Budget Committee? Before we, Councilmember Kennedy?
Yeah, I was unable to make it to the budget meetings in December and January, but the problem that I see with this is people looking at this budget goals and living by it, that this is exactly what we have. As we start discussing the budget and going through with the whole budget process, I think there's room for a lot of things because as I look through this, there's no line item budget ability for the council to line item veto anything. I don't see anything in this budget of how we freeze the budget at this year's budget level and going forward, having people live within the budget from this year that's been allocated, and then give us a whole list of things that may be added on. And also, since we're running out of money and short, I would even say I don't see anything in here that even suggests that we do some type of 5% cut in every budget to be able to go forward. A lot of what I see in here is, there's some good things in here, but a lot of it is, we'll keep on producing a budget that is, everyone just goes ahead and puts together a budget that they feel they need, and no one's looking at any fiscal responsibility on it. So I have some concerns with this.
Okay, so high-level observations, Councilmember Gillick.
Yeah, and I guess, Councilmember Kennedy, I think your comments are better directed at the Budget Committee then, because we were the ones who reviewed this rather than at staff. But so certainly take this, there's an opportunity here to amend this document to add the things that you're looking for, and we can vote on that.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't think it surprises anybody that I hate these kind of documents, and I hate working on them because we get wrapped up around what words mean. And at the end of the day, the whole point of the budget process and the reason that we work through this for months and months and months is that our charter is very clear. The city administrator presents his budget, and the council then works through the budget, makes adjustments, works with the city administrator to come to a budget that can be passed. I understand the intent of this, and I can appreciate trying to hone in better, but these types of documents, I think, create more contention by trying to find consensus than they do in just letting us do our work. And to me, the whole point of the budget committee is to work together with actual numbers and data and information in front of us, with something that's produced by the city administrator and his staff, which is how it's been done forever. And then we work through this stuff. Last year was the first time that I had went through the budget process, and I learned a lot. I know a lot more questions to ask this time to be more efficient and effective. And I think as we go through this during our terms, I think that's the appropriate way to do it. Spending the time with the city administrator, talking with the finance director, and really explaining what our goals and targets are. I think we've done most of this is a regurgitation in some form or fashion of the adopted goals and objectives from 2025 to 2030. And theoretically, it probably should be. I mean, that's our overall guiding strategic planning document. I don't understand necessarily the need to have another sub-document and subsequent document, and then to go through this process every year seems unnecessary to me. I mean, I would prefer that we continue to do the work the way that we continue to do the work. I mean, This was a worthwhile conversation maybe, but I think it is creating more frustration, consternation, and issues trying to talk about theoreticals without just having hard data in front of us. And this is one of those points where I think as we try to drive this idea that we have to have consensus on everything, that we create more contention. So from my perspective, I just as soon table this thing and do the budget the way that we do the budget. I don't think that there's anything broken, and I think it allows us to do the work that we've been elected to do. So that's my high-level commentary. I'd offer a substitute motion to table this document and indefinitely.
I'll second.
Okay, motion is to table the document, made by Councilmember Aspenlighter, seconded by Councilmember Kennedy. So that is the current motion, or on the or before you. Again, high level stuff. Councilmember Rupsis, Councilmember Neese, Councilmember Owen, and then back to Councilmember Gulick.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to support this motion, but probably not for the reason that Councilmember Aspenlighter thinks. I think it's a total miss. This document came out of our own expressed frustration with how last year's budget conversations went, and we asked the city administrator and our finance director to come back to us with ideas on how to improve the process. And one of the big complaints we had is we did not have enough early input into the process, so that things were being all jumbled up at the very end when we were actually trying to plan the budget or pass the budget, as opposed to if we had more input early on, maybe some of those things could have been headed off. To me, this document, notwithstanding Andy's great work on it, is just a miss because it wasn't council drafted, right? We should be taking our 5-year budget plan and saying, what are our budget priorities, or our 5-year strategic plan, and then using this opportunity to say, what are our actual budget goals for this particular year, right? This first year of our 5-year strategic plan, what are we going to try to accomplish to move the ball down the field? And I think we didn't do that. It really is just, as Councilmember Aspenlighter said, a kind of regurgitation of our strategic goals instead of really giving, I think, staff some sense of, and I do think we should be trying to get to some consensus on that budget committee of where we want staff to go as they're starting to make decisions about what to present to us. So I'm going to support the tabling the motion right now, but mostly because I'd like to see us have come at it in a little bit more council-directed way, as opposed to letting staff bring the ideas to us and give us the document and say, here, what do you think of this? I would like to see next year's budget committee really be hands-on in drafting these, and get Thank you. That's all I have to say.
Mayor, I think I'm just going to say I'll support the substitute motion. There's a lot been said already. And so we'll move on so we can get to a vote pretty quick on this. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Owen.
Thank you, Mayor. Likewise, I concur in everything Councilmember Aspenlighter said, but I was looking up some budget information here, and I guess in fairness, need to acknowledge that the municipal official handbook from MSU, and I know you spend a lot of time with Dan Clark, does recommend a budget goal process. I really have a hard time with it because I think we do end up fighting over hypotheticals and first principles rather than just voting on concrete, budget amendments. But I guess I want to just at least acknowledge that it does appear there's some recommendation that a budget goal setting process is a good idea. I agree with Councilmember Rupsis. I don't think we hit it this year, but I also don't want to leave folks without some sort of structure. So I think if we're going to agree on budget goals, they need to be a little bit more high level than this. I think what we can't do is create a scenario where people are being forced to agree to hypothetical bars to future amendments. And I don't think that was the intention here, but I think it would have that effect of council members getting pushback saying, well, you agreed to some budget goal document and now you're putting out an amendment that does something different. So I'm going to support this amendment because I don't think we're where we need to be. But I guess I'm not sure that I have a good sense of how we address this going forward if some sort of guiding principle is necessary. So for what it's worth, those are my thoughts on this matter.
Thank you, Councilmember Gulick, and then I'll chime in some comments and Councilmember Shaw.
Yes, well, I guess I confess I'm confused because the committee did indeed provide input into this. It was not just something that the staff foisted on us or something like that. So I guess I mean, you can't have numbers to present. I realize it's really helpful to see actual numbers so that you can weigh magnitudes and where to change things around and whatnot. But I think staff need to have some basic direction before they can give us something to work with, because I don't want them to spend a lot of time putting together a budget that we just largely reject because we have different priorities. So, you know, I'm frustrated that we're not moving the process forward at all by tabling this. I guess I'm interested in hearing from staff in terms of if we table this, do you feel like you have a sense of what our next steps are, what the process should be, or do you feel like you have do you have the ability to put together a budget that's going to be maybe a step forward from where we were last year?
So, Mayor,
So you want Chris? Yes, yeah, go ahead, Chris.
yeah, Mayor and Councilmember Gulick. Yes, in that over the past 25 years, I've put together a budget every year, a balanced budget, which is my responsibility, both here and elsewhere. There have been times when there have been specific budget goals, and it's helpful if it's at the right level. Without it, what the focus is you've adopted goals and objectives here in November. That if the budget doesn't match moving those goals and objectives forward, then we've missed something. So that's the underlying document we will use unless and until there's any more specific guidance on a particular year that we're going into.
Okay. Any follow-up, Councilmember Gulick, before we? Okay, I'll defer to Councilmember Shaw, and then I'll make comments.
Yeah, just quickly, my take in reading through this is that it's both too specific and too broad in some places. And I think I would lean toward using the adopted goals and objectives as the underlying document for the moment. I think that I assume this is a process that will happen again next year. And I think then the budget committee can come back and hopefully we can have a better conversation. But just in reading through it, there were some places where I felt like I was being asked to, sign off on. It would be like the legislative committee asking individual opinions on specific bills, right? Instead of just the overall goal. And that's where I felt like this got too specific. But then there are also places where I thought it was a little too broad in a way that I didn't find super helpful. So those are just my feedback from it. I will definitely support the motion to table it. Thanks.
Okay, Councilmember Braun?
Could I ask just a question, Mayor?
Sure.
And Andy, I know you and I've talked a lot about this, but it would be helpful for me if you could articulate the concern about amendments, because I find the debate on amendments to be healthy and helpful and productive. And when council members write it down, it helps me prepare for meetings, but I gather it creates some angst. So could you just talk us through what those concerns are and why there would be a desire to limit the amendment process?
Sure. Mayor, Councilmember Owen, the biggest challenge that I have with them is, well, I think it's probably twofold. Oftentimes there may be competing amendments, and so trying to gauge, what does the ultimate budget look like, so I can give you, hey, that does or doesn't work for whatever reason, or they're very robust, and so trying to just really give you the best opinion I have on whether they're feasible or not. That's the biggest challenge when they come the night of budget adoption. But historically, that's how it happens. So we're largely prepared as much as we can be. One of the, I think, best improvements I've seen in the past few years was you guys writing them down ahead of time. It really gives staff time to actually analyze it and get some idea on what the impact is. I will fully encourage that we do that again and make that opportunity available to you guys as well. That is absolutely very helpful. It gets everybody prepped on what's potentially there. But really, it's just the number of them and making sure we're tracking on which ones get approved, which ones don't, and making sure it's all
Mayor,
done
could I
well
follow
that
up?
night.
Go ahead.
One of the things that I've been a proponent of, and I think I've gotten a little bit of mixed feedback on, is having the first business meeting in June be the amendment night, and the second business meeting in June be the budget adoption night. So there's a little space between where staff can sort through amendments, make sure there aren't conflicts. But I gather that that's maybe a little disruptive. And so could you clarify why there's a sort of a drive towards adopting it in early June rather than putting just some space between a night where we churn through amendments and a night where we review everything that's been done and then adopt the budget?
Mayor, Councilmember Owen, I believe historically we attempt to have the budget for adoption on that first meeting in June, with the hope that we've gone through all the work sessions, everybody's ready to adopt that night. If we're not, then we have that second meeting in June to do that. Realistically, I guess I don't see. Well, I'll take last year as an example. We had somewhere between 10 and 12 amendments that night. We worked through them in one evening, and if we were to delay that for 2 weeks, it certainly could. But at that point, it's, I guess, a function of just adopting the budget as amended. So I've never quite fully understood why delay it for 2 weeks. Your point's well taken, though. It, give some time for council to perhaps consume. All right, this is where we're at. What does this look like, and what happened?
Well, I was more speaking to your concern that maybe there would be amendments in conflict with each other, or amendments that were layered in such a way that the mill levy calculation was off, or something to that effect.
So that has not been an issue. Usually
Okay.
by the time we get to June, we have pretty good idea what we're going to expect for tax revenue and things like that. And if there are competing amendments, I mean, I'm pretty clear that these two can't both go forward, and you guys are as well, especially if they're written down ahead of time. Again, I'll go back to that. That is very, very helpful. It really highlights, hey, these two can't go together. So that I'll continue to encourage that.
Okay, thanks, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Kennedy, you had something else?
Andy, one of the areas I really do think that by the time we get the budget book and we're able to really go through it and everything, there's a lot of stuff in it. And really, how do I know at the end, and I've been told this many times, well, he voted for it. And so for me to really know what's in the budget, it's more of a line item budget that I know what I'm voting for. And we don't have that. It would be really nice if we did, and we'd be able to eliminate something in the budget that we really are not willing to go with. And I would like to see that. But the other piece of it is we have a budget for this year, and this year's budget should be your starting point because that's where the monies are. And all of a sudden, and I understand, Chris, you said to us last year that, well, we need to let everybody look at the next 5 years, and we don't want to stop people from looking at things that are better for the city and all of that. We're going through a change with property taxes in this legislative session. We have no clue if the property taxes are going to be reimbursed or not if the legislature decides to reduce them. We had a real problem with some things that have taken place with the water bills and on infrastructure and different things like that. And fees went up. Well, I was brand new, fees came forward, and it was, we need to do this because of all of this. Now I'm a little better knowledge-wise of what those fees do. I'm not so sure I'd vote for them this year. I think it's a tough year. But as you're looking for input of what to say to each of the department heads, I would tell them to stand where they were this year and not go dreaming or putting anything out. And we should be talking about any new ideas or critical. I still don't understand in this sustain and upgrade critical infrastructure. I understand we went through 50 million overheads talking about stormwater and all of that. That created a real big problem. And the increase in a lot of these fees and everything. So I guess I would, as one council person, kind of stay where we're at and keep a very solid, condensed budget where we are, and not go shooting the moon with this next budget. I was even going to ask to look at you to go back to department heads and look at a 5% reduction of where they could see some reduction in the budget. I go around and I know, Chris, that because of the charter, you're the guy that makes the decisions for each of these department heads. And I see money spent around town and other people call me and say, why did you put a new sign here? And why did you do that? And then someone tells me that you don't have a stove that works at one of the fire stations. Why aren't we addressing some things and that we're adding new stuff? I would really see us to come back with a very austere budget this year. Thank you.
Okay, very much. Or thank you very much. Back, a reminder, council, what's before you is the substitute motion to table the budget goals in front of you. Interesting conversation. I guess my comments also very surprised. This was coming from the budget committee. And the only member of the budget committee who's actually in favor is the chair, Councilmember Gillick. Councilmembers Owen, Kennedy, Aspenleiter, and Ripsis have all expressed a desire to table the motion. So I think I know where this is going, but I kind of like the process because I've seen the value of having these early discussions like we're having. Councilmember Kennedy, that discussion never would have happened. And it's very high level, very important, and I think better to be, if not finally resolved, then at least hashed out early in the process rather than late in the process. To Councilmember Owen's comment about process here, I would encourage the Budget Committee to guide us a little bit on the procedure and make some suggestions, and specifically consider a recommendation that we that we only look at amendments when they have been put into writing, because that is so valuable. Maybe some exception if there's a real clear need, but I think it's really important that we have an opportunity to look at amendments as they come forward in a calm fashion that's very clear and demand written amendments. But that's for another day. So anyway, I like this process. I agree there's not some, I share the concern that once you create this, it takes on a life of its own. And as Councilmember Owen expressed, that somebody will say, well, you said, and you're bound by this document. I was actually going to draft something in the way of a preamble that said, yeah, this was the budget committee, blame them a little bit. Say this is aspirational goals done at an early stage. this is not binding on the council, expect changes, something like that, just to sort of set the record that this is a starting point, but some starting point is better than nothing to start the discussion on some of these items. So I'll vote against the substitute motion for those reasons. So further discussion before we have a vote? It's not like we're in a big hurry, guys, tonight. So if you want to discuss anything else, it's not like there's a lot else on the agenda. Because I was seeing this for fresh eyes. I was not part of the budget committee, and so I was looking at it and said, "Oh, really? They think that?" And that was valuable to me. And I would encourage actually the committee. This could still be the committee's document, and I think that adds some value. So. Thank you for it. Yeah, I think it was kind of educational for me to see the direction this was going on some of these items sooner rather than later. So I do appreciate your efforts, and maybe if you work up a preamble and want to bring it back, if it fails tonight, I for one would say that's just fine. So, but are we ready to vote or anything else? Okay, and I apologize. I saw Councilmember Boyette come up. And he has been with us. Councilmember Boyd, we have not given you a chance. Can you hear us and can we hear you? And if so, did you want to comment?
I asked Mike to let us know if sound was working for him, and he hasn't. So I'm assuming he can't hear us.
Okay. So Councilmember Boyd, we're assuming you cannot, I don't know why you'd be looking, just watching us, expert lip reader. Perhaps, I don't know. But okay, we obviously have technical difficulties there. We apologize, Councilor Boyette. So, okay, we will move ahead with the vote. Just so we have a clear vote, why don't we do a hand vote? Again, the motion is the substitute motion to table this without any certain date. So if in favor of the substitute motion made by Councilmember Aspliner, seconded by Councilmember Kennedy, if in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Voting in favor are all members of the City Council, except Councilmember Gulick and Councilmember myself. And so if opposed, please raise your hand. Councilmember Gulick and myself indicate opposition. Councilmember Boyette is not voting. So with that, the motion passes. This has been tabled. Again, I continue to think there was value added by going through the process. We'll send it back to the budget committee and we'll see what happens from here. With that, that's the end of our regular agenda. Is there any public comment on things not on our agenda tonight? Wyeth says no. Okay. Any council initiatives? Councilmember Kennedy.
Yes, I would just ask that my initiative was supposed to go to the budget committee. Is it going to be on our agenda on Wednesday?
Councilmember Kennedy, we didn't have anything else. Well, actually, we didn't have that on the agenda for Wednesday. We didn't have anything. We canceled the meeting, but now I'm rethinking that that we might want to reconsider that. And
we canceled the meeting.
Yes. Oh. Yes, we did.
I didn't
but
have that.
We might want to reconsider, so we'll caucus afterwards.
Fall back out, did we?
Before I gavel us adjourned, Chris, did you want to comment?
Schedule when they're not working. There's staff work that needs to be done in human resources, I think, to give a thorough response to the initiative that was approved. So the initiative's approved. We have work to do in order to give you, the Budget and Finance Committee, the proper information on the impact of eliminating the car allowances. So it's not it is an issue that must be dealt with, but we're not in a position to bring that information to the committee this week.
But I understand you have initiated the research process.
Yes. Yes, so that next day, tasked Human Resources with getting us the background information, impacts, history, things like that. What? I can't give you a date right now. The other thing I would do, Mayor, ever so briefly, and I'm sorry to extend us here, but I want to manage expectations for a week from now. So a week from now, we're going to be in work session. We're going to be in this room. We're going to try down on tables with mics, so we're not in this setting to be in more of a kind of collaborative conversation. The second item that's on the agenda is the conversation about parkland or land sale. And what Kevin and I, as we've been having things on both of our plates and his, and the work with the realtor to do that work, do not expect some big robust memo that covers all the things, because that information just isn't all together. But we believe the conversation should move forward in that collaborative way. So there will be some packet material of the things that have been gathered. We've been working with a realtor. There were 3 realtors that qualified for commercial work for us. So we've been working with a new one of those to spread that work around, and that will be on the agenda next week. I just wanted to kind of set the expectation of what you are going to get in your packet material. It's not, here's our recommendation of exactly what to do. And I think that's, from hearing from some of you, that's a good thing. So, thank you.
Very much. Follow Councilmember Beal, Councilmember
Does my mic still work? Yes.
Here's it, yeah.
Thanks to Councilmember Rupsis, we did tour the Ward 1 properties, have comments that I've not shared yet, but should I be sending it to you before next week? Is that helpful / requisite?
Councilmember Gulick, that would be very helpful. Right now, I think I'm up to 126 different tax code properties, so the list is getting long, that I will share with you whatever I've got completed by the time the packet needs to go out.
Okay, very good. Councilmember Dees, did you have something? You were just. I'm just pointing the mic to you to try to. Oh, okay. All right. Thank you. I don't think there's anything else. So thank you, everybody. We are adjourned. Stay warm. Drive carefully.